You're listening to the Powers Podcast with your host, Noah Powers. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Powers Podcast with your host, Noah freaking Powers. Episode 3, guys. I think this is a thing now, and I'm really excited about it. Seriously, guys, I cannot thank you all enough for the continued love and support that you've shown my channel and my podcast. It means the absolute world to me. Now, if you're new to my channel or you're watching this video and you don't subscribe to me, it would mean the world to me if you would hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. And if you really like it, leave me a comment and tell me how much you liked it. Like I said, guys, it means the world to me. And I could not thank you all enough for everything you've done, even if I wanted to. So thank you guys so much for that. Now, the topic of today's video is my first paranormal experience. Now, for anyone who knows me, you know that I love anything paranormal or anything having to do with ghosts. Anything haunted, I'm down for it. So yeah, and my best friend of over a decade, his name's Houston, he's the same way. And over the summer, usually, we would at least once a week go on these late night road trips to just these random places, and sometimes those locations that we would go to would be supposedly haunted. Now, we heard this story, which I'm about to tell you, about something that happened in a little town called Rural Hall, North Carolina. It's a few miles northwest of Winston-Salem, and it's right near the border of the mountain range and the Piedmont region of North Carolina. So it's when you first start to get into the mountains, and it's got the creepy landscape and no street lights or anything like that. So the setting in itself is creepy enough without having to deal with ghosts. But we go to this place, and it's probably between midnight and 1 a.m. Before we even start going that way. We probably ended up getting there about 2:30 in the morning, something like that. And we're driving down the road, and as we're going, I'm telling Houston the story, which goes like this. Back in the day, I can't remember the year, but it had to have been post 1936, because the car which is involved in the story is either a 1933 or a 1936 Ford hot rod. It doesn't specify the model of the car. So it was a 1933 or 1936. There's some differences in the stories, but the car itself had rounded headlights, and supposedly the driver of the car was flying down the road. Now, like I said, it's when you first start to get into the mountains, so the roads are very curvy, and the driver did not clear one of the curves, ran off the road, crashed the car, and the car burst into flames. Unfortunately, the driver of the car did not die on impact, so the driver was burned to death. And the people that were around that I guess heard the crash and came out to see what it was had to sit there, and they said they could hear the driver screaming for help, but there was nothing they could do because, of course, the car was on fire. So that's the story, and supposedly this has been reported several times, but there's a certain spot on the road up there. You'll be driving, and out of nowhere, a car will come up on you. Now, you can usually tell whether or not you're looking at the ghost car by the rounded headlights. That's the big indicator. So it'll follow you for a few minutes, and then when you hit a certain spot on the road, the car will disappear without a trace. So that's the story, and that's kind of what we were expecting to see. Not necessarily expecting, but what we were looking for. So we're going, and we're driving around the back roads up there, and we're kind of just going, and we're keeping an eye out because, like I said, it's in the mountains, and so there are no street lights, and the houses, for the most part, are probably 100 to 200 yards apart. So there's nothing lighting up the road except your headlights. And so we were kind of keeping an eye out. We were really just creeped out by the the landscape of the place. And we're driving, and all of a sudden, we're getting blinded by this car behind us. And it freaked us out at first, but we kind of dismissed it as, just a regular driver. We got to thinking about it. We were like, yeah, it's probably just some guy out. And so we didn't think much of it. But then we kind of thought about it to ourselves for a second. And then we both came to the realization that the car didn't seem to come from anywhere. It was just kind of there. Now, usually, especially if the car coming up on you has their bright lights on, which this car did, you can kind of see it easing up on you. That was not the case with this. With this, the car did not appear to come from anywhere. We looked back, there was nothing, and then all of a sudden we're getting blinded. So that really freaked us out. And on top of that, the car was almost on our bumper. It was almost to the point where the headlights were so close to us that we couldn't see them through the back window. That's how close the car was to us. And so we get to this intersection, and it's a pretty open intersection. There's not a lot of trees, and there's some fields beside us and stuff. So I tell Houston to take a right, and he does, and the car follows us. And we go for probably about a minute, and we come up on this really big curve. What happened next freaked us both out. We get through this curve, and we're going again, and the car is not behind us. And we kind of waited a second to see if the car was going to come up behind us. It never did. So I tell Houston to turn around, and we do. And we go back through the curve, and to our surprise, there was nowhere that car could have turned off. There are no side roads that lead off of the road we were on. There were no long driveways. The only driveway we saw in the vicinity of where we lost the car had two cars parked in the driveway, neither of which appeared to have been driven recently. So there's nowhere the car could have turned off except this one driveway, and both cars in this driveway look like they haven't been driven recently. And I don't mean recently as in, that day or whatever. I mean recently as in a second ago. Because the way I look at it, if we'd got back, there was no way by the time we got back to that spot that the person would have been out of the car and in the house. But we get back, both cars are parked like they haven't been driven for a few hours. So we both kind of thought about it, and we talked about it on the way home, and we kind of, came to the realization that, hey, maybe we did have a paranormal experience. And I believed in it before that, but now it's kind of like it's opened up to me in a different way. Now, like I said, guys, a lot of people are skeptical of it, and with good reason. It's very much up to interpretation whether or not you decide to believe this stuff. I, for one, do. Now, do I know for a fact that what we saw was a ghost car? No. Do I believe it was? Yeah. I would say I'm like 90% sure what we saw was a ghost car, but I don't know that for a fact. But yeah, guys, that was my first paranormal experience, my one and only, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, if you guys have had any paranormal experiences yourself, feel free to leave them in the comments section. But yeah, guys, that does it. That is my paranormal experience. That is my one and only paranormal story. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you stayed to the end, thank you so much. If you like the podcast, be sure to hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up. Like I said, leave me a comment. Tell me some of your paranormal stories. Yeah, guys, that does it for this episode. I really appreciate you watching and listening. Thank you so much.